So here's where things begin for real. I want to welcome people to the course, and I want to welcome people to the first series of lectures, which is on the brain or neuroscience. And I want to begin this series of lectures and the course itself with a story about a man named Phineas Gage, and an event what happened to Gage in summer in 1848 in Cavendish, Vermont. So Gage was a blasting foreman working on a railway construction project, and his job at that time was to clear away rocks and that they could lay down tracks. And to do so, his routine during those days was that he would bore a hole in the rocks. Inside the hole, he put blasting powder and fused in. When he would cover that up with dirt and sand and take a tension iron which he carried with him. A big piece of steel looked like a javelin and use it to tamp down the sand and dirt, so that later they could set the fuse and cause of explosions. Well, one day something didn't work. Nobody exactly sure why, maybe he just forgot to put in the sand and the dirt, but regardless. He put the tamping iron into the hole, the board exploded. The tamping iron shot away from his hand and went into his face. It entered in the left side of Gage's jaw, moving in an upward direction. It passed behind the left side of the brain, and it went out the top of his skull and landed several feet away the clutter. Now, miraculously, Gage wasn't killed on the spot. He lost consciousness for a little bit. But then he staggered to his feet, and in some regards, Gage was very lucky. So he underwent a series of operations. He had infections, he got sick. At time, his life was a risk. But months later, he was in certain regards pretty much recovered. He was able to see, he wasn't deaf, he wasn't paralyzed, he didn't lose the ability to speak or understand language. He didn't lose his intellectual characteristics in any simple way. But in another sense, Gage was very unlucky because Gage has been transformed by this accident. Someone who knows Gage describes the transformation like this. Before the accident, Gage was called the most efficient and capable man, a man of a temperate habits, considerable energy of character, a sharp-shrewd businessman. After the incident, Gage was no longer Gage. He was fitful, irreverent, indulging at times in the grossest profoundly, manifesting but little difference for his fellows. He ended up losing his job. He traveled through the states, taking up the different jobs, engaging in different relationships, and ultimately ended it up in an exhibit in a traveling circus, holding and templing iron and telling people about this terrible story, about how it went through his brain and changed his life. So, why I'm telling you this story? Well, as I said, I want to begin the course by talking about the brain. And the story of Phineas Gage illustrates something which I have abundant reasons to believe, which is that brain is the source of mental life. And so damage to the brain can have profound effects on who we are and what we are. And idea here is nicely summarized by the Nobel Prize-winning biologist Francis Crick. He calls it the astonishing hypothesis. As he writes, the astonishing hypothesis is that your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associate molecules. Now this assembly of nerve cells is of source the brain and the part of spinal cord. But we're going to talk about the brain here. And the idea then, as sometimes people like to put in the mind is the brain, or that the mind is the brain does, or the mental life emerges from the brain. The official term of this materialism, what we are material being. Everybody accepts that our arms and legs and our heart and kidneys are made of the same sort of stuff and as rabbits and automobiles and cups. But the idea is that our mental life what makes us special. Our most intimate feelings and thoughts are also arrived from these material things. And this is the idea that makes possible the discipline of neuroscience and much of psychology.